On Rubbin Minds, we take a look at Governance 360. How can we get accountability from our government officials, the agencies of government that do not serve their purpose? How can we stop and fix the duplication problems in the agencies of government? And finally, how can we get action beyond social media? Up next, Ebuka chats with broadcast journalist Nelly Kalu on Rubbin Minds.
All right, welcome back. Now we're going to be switching our conversation, talking about governance. And there's a lot happening in that space. There's a lot of quite interesting and some have said weird agencies being trying to be created or laws being trying to pass. I'm joined now by Nelly via Skype. Nelly, can you hear me? How are you doing?
I can hear you, Ebuka. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I want to start off immediately with this agency, which a lot of Nigerians have found very interesting. It's called the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Agency, which is supposed to be another agency added onto the ICPC and the EFCC and, of course, our courts to fight corruption. Some have said, well, the corruption battle in Nigeria is quite intense and it needs as many agencies as we can get. But there's also people who believe, what then is the EFCC and ICPC doing? We already have these two agencies that are confusing to Nigerians with overlapping sort of responsibilities. Do we need another agency, you think?
Do we need another agency? Do we need to duplicate something that we at least believe already exists in some form or the other? Well, the answer is obviously no. But I think the major question is why anyone feels the need to do that. I think that's where the question lies. Why does the government or the AGF or whoever else comes up with another agency or parastatal, why do they need to do that when one isn't working? And for me, because I have to first say I'm a broadcast journalist, I'm not a political analyst, but I would say this as a broadcast journalist, that for every reason and every time that we as Nigerians start thinking that we need to create more agencies, which will equal more jobs, because there are many large unemployed or poorly active workforce, it's a problem. Every time we have a band-aid effect where we feel like we need to fix the problems of an existing agency, we just need to create another agency that checkmates that agency. And on it goes, and the larger the government gets, it is also a problem because it only says that we're not thinking about innovation. We're not getting past the same way things have been done. We're in a world today where you and I are speaking and we're not in the studio. We're in a world where there are several ways, and funny enough, the pandemic has created a window for us to think outside any box that we thought we were thinking outside of in the first place. So at this very moment and in the current time, why do we need to fix a problem with the same old method? So why does anyone think so? And I think maybe that's the question we should probably start asking. When people come up with these new solutions, we should start asking why in the first place they think that's the only solution that they can come up with. Just asking. I think that might start.
I definitely agree with you. But let's sort of pivoting away from that, boss. He's talking about corruption or, things around that. The US and even the UK have made steps to ban government officials from Nigeria who they say are involved in election rigging from coming into their countries. We're not sure what criteria will be used to find these officials, but there's also people who have wondered, will this be effective enough? I know a lot of our politicians love to travel, especially for medical tourism. Do you think this would be enough of a deterrent? And are you worried about what criteria would be used to find these people?
There are many things that I worry about. I do not worry about when it comes to Nigeria. I worry about a little less than I used to worry before. First, we are not in a position to wonder about that interference because we have created that room for it. We have just, piggybacking to what we're talking about before, we have anti-corruption agencies that exist to check corruption, and then we need another agency to check it. So we shouldn't be surprised if someone else chooses to check us for things we are not checking. It brings in question accountability and transparency that is missing. So whatever the criteria that they choose to use or criterion that will come around, really, I think, Ebuka, between both of us, I worry a little less about that because neither of us are in a position to make that, Nigeria is not in a position to make that demand. And again, it's also narrowing the view that if Nigerian politicians or whoever it is that's corrupt and involved in election rigging does not travel to the UK and the US, there isn't any other place for them to go. There are numerous tax havens where they hide money. There are numerous tax havens where they can go and not be prosecuted for corruption in the first place of any kind. So having the UK and the US say we are putting an embargo on who comes to our country, it's a nice move, but I don't think it's such a overarching move that suddenly people will not be able to go to any other country for people who, of course, they say are corrupt. And I think it will only fall on these corrupt people when they're finally banned to defend the parameters that have been used to, determine them as corrupt until the time comes, I guess.
Now let's talk about Edo State now. I know the elections, we don't have a complete picture yet of everything. But, the build up to the elections was quite intense. So many people seem to be involved. I saw paid adverts all over the place from what you will call party bigwigs, sort of getting in the fight there. Watching how the lead up to the elections have played out, and of course the one with Edo State as well. Are you seeing any progress at all in our electoral system and how things will shape up in the few elections coming up before 2023?
I'm trying not to sound naive and hopeful, and also trying not to sound very cynical either, because the position that we place ourselves as broadcasters allows us to be cynical, because you see things being very cyclical. They just repeat themselves over and over without actually changing. I'm also a fact checker with the Jubawa Premium Times Investigative Center for Journalism Fellowship. So I did a fact check actually on Ize Yamu's claims on the security votes. What this does, and in working on that fact check, I had to call his director of communications for his campaign. All I can say is I just see us repeating the same things happening, and it's because we need as citizens and as Nigerians to focus on accountability and transparency. We need to demand it, not just by journalists and not just by political analysts or anyone else who can speak about it or write about it. We as citizens need to demand it, because it's the same cycle. I'm not thinking there's anything different. The debates were better. Let me start by that. The debates were better. There were more fact checks and people trying to find out if politicians are saying the truth or not, and if there's a backing to what they're claiming. But here's the thing. If no one else is reading the fact checks, if no one else is asking the question, if someone says there's 600 million naira spent a month in Edo State on security votes, for instance, and no one else is asking that question, if we keep watching the play of politics as if we were watching a soap opera, we will keep living at the back end of the results. So I personally do not see anything different. I don't see a change happening in how the elections are conducted or run. I don't see a difference in how politicians are campaigning. They're just dropping more figures, and they're just dropping more, what I'll say, innovation in government per se. You can say you opened a website or you gave a job, or now suddenly you're using some sort of social technology. And then it's different from what you said 4 years ago. But in the entire manner of it, I'm probably just a skeptic, but I do not see any difference at all. Not so far. Do you see any difference? Do you see a difference?
I plead whatever. I plead Chapter 4 of our Constitution, my fundamental rights. Before we go now, did you think it was a good thing that a lot of sort of national actors got involved in a local election, or do you think it was a little suspicious that they all want a piece of the pie there?
I think I'm beginning to say a lot of I think. So let me just say this: the reason why this never changes, and whether it's local actors or international actors, or whoever, the reason why it seems like there's probably more participation, I think, is cyclical. We see that every time that there are rules or regulations that stifle private sector, that rules and regulations that limit innovation, when the economy isn't doing as buoyantly as it does, there is a heavier participation in politics. There isn't a data I can quote for you other than observing the country in my 10 years of the job. And there is always a higher participation in politics because it seems as if in the grassroots, the belief is the money at least continues to circulate in politics. And that's because we have so many unaccountable forums, to gather money in the government. And it's true. We have so many of these unaccountable rooms for money to come in and out. And so sometimes when we see local participation, whether at a local government or a grassroots, it's something for us to question how viable and how strong these participatory moves are. Because in the end, the question is, are you participating because you probably want a career in politics for the sake of doing good, or you probably decided that it's time to get in the game, or to earn a living because there's just nowhere else for you to earn this living? So I'm guessing that's it. And what else is accountability in general? You account for something, and that's a manner of being. It's saying that you're answerable to people when they ask you. But transparency to me is more important because that's more tangible. It's an object that you can show. It's something that says, here's the result for 4 years of governance. Here's the result for electing me or re-electing me. And these are the things that I can prove that I have done or haven't done. It's simple. We do that all the time. And I'm very well aware that we've been pronounced poverty capital. But you're only pronounced a poverty capital when data shows that there isn't any result for innovation, growth, development, diversification, or the economy. So transparency, I think, is something we should just simply ask in your local government meetings, and in the one time you get a chance to tweet at your governor or your House of Rep or your senators, whoever it is in the assembly that represents you, ask a transparent question. Yes. Because that's where you have to come.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nelly Kalu. Food for thought there for a lot of us, and thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, I mean, there's a lot still to come for 2023. We can only hope for progress, and thanks for joining us. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right. Well, like I always say, you can follow the conversation on Twitter. Rubbin Minds now is the handle. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you tweet at us. Do have a good week, and I'll see you next Sunday.